Hello, I'm back with another sit-down video. So last year, in August, September time, we went to Liseberg in Sweden. And Liseberg is Sweden's biggest theme park, probably, I think it is. Home to the likes of Helix, the Muckride's launch coaster, Boulder, the Intamin prefabricated roller coaster, Liseberg Banan, or Liseberg Banana as I like to call it, a Schwarzkopf coaster, and then the other big one is Valkyria, a B&M dive coaster. So during our visit, we got to have a tour around the park thanks to a great guy called Pontus. He essentially gave us a behind the scenes tour of the entire park practically. Took us behind the scenes on the roller coasters, into the operating cabins, into the maintenance sheds, and told us a shed load of facts about the park and all the specific rides. And this happened ages ago and I've been meaning to kind of wrap it all up in video form. We took lots of footage of us with him and listening to all the facts, but I'm going to condense it all down, rattle off a few of the facts and show you some of the footage that we took on the day of behind the scenes and just us talking to it. So without further ado, let's get into it. We started off our tour at Helix. So that was at the top of the hillside. And if you don't know, Liseberg is built kind of as this flat bit and then there's a large hill, and Helix is built right at the top of the hill. So we went up to Helix and we kind of looked down over the hill and we started to rattle off a few facts. One thing was that Helix was codenamed Greenfire, and as you might know, Bluefire at Europa Park was the first of Muck's launch coasters. So Greenfire, Helix is a green roller coaster. Makes sense, it checks out, right? We spoke how Helix doesn't really have launches. Pontus called them boosters, and I would really agree about that. They're not forceful, they don't kind of launch the train, they just maintain the speed of the train. So yeah, if you ever ride Helix, don't expect the launches to be fantastic. They're not really launches, they're just there to kind of keep everything going. Helix had many iterations as a roller coaster in terms of the layout design. At first, it was planned to be a mega coaster. So this was going to be a huge roller coaster that kind of sat at the very top of the hill and would go even higher. So you can imagine like a 100 to 200 foot tall roller coaster on this already massive hillside. It would have been immense. The concept for the mega coaster was all in place before Andreas, the current CEO of Liseberg, came in. And Andreas basically said, the mega coaster idea is cool, but we have so much terrain here. Why don't we build a launch coaster from the ground up that really utilizes the potential of the terrain? So that's what they started to do. They started to build a launch coaster, came up with different iterations, how the coaster kind of went down the terrain, back up it, and all that kind of jazz. And Helix was thus born. So you can thank Andreas for coming up with Helix in its final form instead of it being a massive mega coaster. And the final thing about Helix, interestingly, is that Liseberg themselves designed the actual train. So the way the train looks, Liseberg as the park designed it, and Muck Rides actually bought that design to use on their other rides that they manufacture. So what happened was Icon at Blackpool Pleasure Beach used the same style and the same design as Helix because Muck bought it and then were able to use it on future coasters. After looking at Helix's maintenance shed, going in the operating cabin and stuff like that, we started to make our way back down the hill. But first he pointed to the old observation tower, which is now Drop Tower Atmosphere, and said that they were thinking about two things. They were either going to put a small drop tower down, one that was potentially a bit more forceful, a bit more interesting, packed more of a punch, or convert their observation tower into a large drop tower, which perhaps was less forceful but could get more people on it. And they chose the latter. Pontus said that it was important that throughput, they were considering throughput, and they wanted to make sure that lots of people were able to ride it. Back down the hill, first thing we did was go into Liseberg Banan, and we went right into the operating cabin of Liseberg Banan. And Liseberg Banan is the old Schwarzkopf sit-down roller coaster at the park, again built right on the hillside, so there's lots of terrain usage there. And originally Liseberg Banan was actually going to be a Vekoma, so it was going to be a Vekoma sit-down coaster like the MK1200s, you know, those kind of weird old janky rides. Anton Schwarzkopf came in and basically took one look at the plans, one look at the hillside, and went, I'm going to design a roller coaster for you guys and you're going to love it. And that's exactly what he did. He designed this roller coaster at Liseberg Banan, and instead of going with Vekoma, Liseberg went with Anton Schwarzkopf and got this Schwarzkopf ride. So we can thank Anton that we have a smooth roller coaster in the park rather than one that's very janky and probably wouldn't exist to this day. But it wasn't all plain sailing for Anton's design, because first time around, Liseberg Banan didn't actually make it through the entire circuit. It got stuck, which is why as you ride it, if you've ridden it before, you might notice that there are kicker wheels. There's like literally tires that push the train along in certain sections, and that's to make sure it actually makes it through the layout. The most interesting fact about Liseberg, which we were told while in the maintenance shed, was that it can't get any upgrades. If they were to upgrade it, it would class as a modern roller coaster, and then it would be under different health and safety regulations and restrictions. Because it's so old, it can go under the old regulations and therefore can continue to operate as it is. But something they could do, and they did do, was actually replace the trains. So last year they got new trains which have a nice and more modern design. But the old trains are still at the park. They're just sitting away, tucked in the corner in storage. Pontus showed us those, showed us just literally lying there on the floor. I don't know, he said that they might use them in the future for something like the Halloween event or something like that. So who knows, we might see them pop up. From Liseberg, it was onto the other side of the park, and as we went along, we went through the kiddie area, Canine Landit, which is basically Rabbit Land as it's called. And he told us about how there was an old logo at Liseberg, and it was the old rabbit. So the old rabbit is the kind of figurehead and the mascot of the park. And he said that the old logo used to feature this rabbit, whereas a few years ago they updated to just Liseberg, so just the name, because they wanted to modernize and they wanted to make sure that the park wasn't just seen as this kiddie attraction, it was seen as a park for everyone. So they kind of withdrew the rabbit icon and put it in its own land, and then had the rest of the park be a bit more adult, a bit more suited to everyone rather than just children. So we passed through there and it was onto Boulder. And Boulder is one of my favorite rides at the park, and this is the massive wooden coaster built by Intamin, the Intamin prefab, and it's awesome. Just has lots of airtime, loads of airtime all the way through. When Pontus gives his tours, Boulder is kind of an interesting point of the tour, because everyone who goes gets to sign their name on Boulder on a piece of its supports. So we did just that. I wrote Coasterbot, and then Zoe wrote Harry and Zoe underneath, and she did it much better than I did because I butchered the handwriting completely. So Coasterbot is on the support somewhere, so if you have a peep through the fence, maybe you'll see it, maybe you won't, who knows. But on Boulder we got to see a few other things, including the operator's cabin. And when we were in there, he said that Boulder runs at a certain speed, so they actually time it. They time, I think they did this on most roller coasters actually, they time how long it takes to complete each circuit. For us, Boulder was running at 54.3 seconds. So from top of the lift hill to the brake run, it was 54.3 seconds. He also said that Boulder would stop, so it would automatically stop if the train completed a circuit in under 51.9 seconds. And on the opening day of last year, it was running at 52 seconds dead on. So it was ridiculously close to, emergency stopping. But I find that quite cool that, if it's running too fast, it will literally just shut down. Unfortunately, if you're a fan of Boulder, Pontus said that he can't see Boulder going over the next 15 years or so, as they just continue to replace the parts and get the orders in from Intamin. So they continue to just kind of maintain it and keep it operating rather than let it go into disrepair. And then finally it was onto Valkyria, which is the newest roller coaster at the park. And the first thing we did was actually go into the operator cabin again, and he told us that quite a few of the operators' cabins at Liseberg are completely soundproof. So you go in there, you hear just before you're about to go in, you're in the station, it's quite loud, there's lots of people in there, there are lots of things going on. You step through into the operating cabin, close the door, silence.
And also here you hear the silence.
Yeah.
It is nice.
Completely silent. It's really jarring, but really cool because, completely silent, but you can see everything going on. You can see through the windows and see the loading take place. So it's a pretty cool thing to witness. And in there, he also told us that Valkyria has second generation vest restraints from B&M. So the older vest restraint design was a lot more kind of tight. It would really push against your chest and would lock into position. Whereas the second generation has a lot more flex to it, so you can actually kind of push yourself out of the seat and you're not as pinned down. And he basically said that they wouldn't have gone with the vest restraint if B&M didn't create this second generation version. So it would have been the normal hard over the shoulders, but because they built the second generation, Liseberg were happy to use it. And then finally, which was a complete shock to me, each of the large wheels, the normal supporting top track wheels that are on Valkyria, cost 2,500 euros each one. And how many do they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at least. So what's that to fill a whole train is 15 grand, and that's just the top wheel. Crazy, right? Absolutely crazy. And then we pretty much just finished off the tour with a final chit chat, walked through a few of the areas again, and he basically said that there's a lot planned for Liseberg in the future. So they're building a new hotel on site that's kind of like behind and to the side of the park, because the hotel that they currently have is much closer to the city, whereas this one would be more themed, more kind of family orientated. And next to that, they're also going to build a water park. So they're going to be a whole new kind of attraction, whole new area to experience. So they're really building up the kind of resort status, and they expect those two to be complete between 2021 and 2023. And because of this major investment, Pontus said that they probably won't get another roller coaster for the next 5 or 6 years. So, you know, if you're a big fan of thrill rides and roller coasters, you're going to have to hold out while Liseberg invests in some other means. But obviously, if these investments are successful, we can obviously see much more expansion in the rest of the park. So it's all a good thing, you know, you've got to kind of expand out and tap into the different parts of the market, you know, otherwise you can't just keep building roller coasters forever. But that was pretty much it. There were loads of highlights from kind of our tour around the entire park. I think I'd never been in an operating cabin before or a maintenance shed before, so it was really cool to just see everything, see how it all worked. You know, it's crazy. It honestly is crazy, the amount of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that you just don't know about. It was very, very cool to witness. And Pontus, he knows so much, loads of facts, and he's such a great guy. So if you're watching Pontus, thank you for showing us around, and thank you to Liseberg for giving us the opportunity to go behind the scenes and see everything in action. Anyway, that's been it from this one. Hopefully you liked it, a little bit different. Finally getting around to doing this. Let us know what kind of other sit-down videos you'd like to see in the near future as well. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next time.